I would characterize this particular year as refocusing on our promise to our students to provide a world-class business education that empowers them to be difference makers. This is the vision of the school.
Dean Behnam, thanks for joining us here on the Loyola University Chicago Interview Series. It's been about a year and a half since you became Dean of the Quinlan School of Business. Can you share some of the highlights and what's been going on in your tenure so far?
Highlights. There are so many in a year and a half. It's been wonderful to come here, first of all. People are enormously welcoming, whether that's our faculty, the students, the staff. It's been a great experience. One of the highlights, I would say, is how mission-suffused and mission-aligned this university is. Not just the Quinlan School of Business, but really the university overall, including the Quinlan School of Business. What I mean by that is that people from all walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, are aligned around Jesuit values of social justice, social impact, ethics, and sustainability. These are things that people really care about here, and it shows in their daily work. Do we live our mission and our vision perfectly every day? No, because we're humans, but it is really something that guides the work of Loyola University and guides the work of Quinlan. And that's enormously refreshing, and it is one of the major reasons I came here, because I was only interested in working in a place that is truly mission-based and mission-aligned. And that's been fantastic to see. By the way, it's also something that's wonderful as I talk to alums around the country, as I travel, because this is not something new. So alums who've graduated 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 30 and 40, and I just met with somebody who graduated almost 60 years ago, this is something that has been around for as long as they can remember. And it was a building block of their education when they graduated 10 years ago or 50 or 60 years ago. And that's quite amazing.
How are those Jesuit values integrated into a business school? Because when you think of business school, you think of, revenue, you think of
Absolutely.
making, how is it integrated?
It's an excellent question, because I think that is really what differentiates Quinlan from many other business schools. A Jesuit mantra of education is that we educate men and women for and with others, as opposed to for and with themselves, which is what most other business schools do, right? It's about, how do I make a quick buck for myself? At Quinlan and at Jesuit schools, it really is about getting a view of things that matter beyond yourself, that go far beyond yourself, right? So it's about marrying profit and purpose. It's not that we're forgetting that there's a purpose element to running a corporation, but there's also another element of that. And I could go into the, philosophical grounding of what makes business a business and why are we allowed to run a business in our society. There's a social contract that allows, businesses to be businesses. And it is something that is at the core of what we teach. Father Baumhard, who was a professor at Quinlan before it was even named Quinlan, and then became the dean and then the longest serving president of Loyola University, literally wrote the book about this when he wrote a book called The Honest Businessman in the 60s already. So it's been at the core of a Quinlan education for a really long time. And when you look at a quote from our namesake of Michael Quinlan in the lobby of this building, it talks about how can you do well and how can you do good at the same time, and not sacrificing one for the other. That's really at the core of what we do here.
How's the school year been going so far? So, we've come off of COVID and a lot of approaches to education change throughout the country. This school year, how would you characterize this school year so far?
So those are two questions, I think, that you're asking in one, but that's great. So Well, let's start with the first part of how are schools coming out of COVID? How is that different? I'll say this, we can clearly see the energy is back in the building, right? The students are here, the faculty are here, people are interacting. For anybody who has seen the Schreiber Center where Quinlan is housed before, we have a lot of social spaces where faculty, students, staff can mingle and hang out together and see each other and cross each other's paths. And that's just fantastic. It energizes the place. And that's really good to see. And when you ask me how that has changed, I would say there's a difference between undergraduate and graduate students. Undergraduate students want a classic college experience. They want to be on campus. They want to have the interaction with their professors and with their classmates, and it shows. They're here. Graduate students, a lot of them are working professionals. It's a little different. They do like the convenience of an online education, and so what we do is we offer the best of both. They can take classes online and they can take classes in person, and for a lot of the programs that we offer, they can actually choose whether they want that particular class online or whether they want it in person. So there's that change, and I think that is something that is really a result of what happened during COVID. And it has, in a positive way, impacted education because it gave more opportunities. Second part of your question is, how's the school year been so far? I think there's really this energy again here. And I would characterize this particular year as refocusing on our promise to our students to provide a world-class business education that empowers them to be difference makers. This is the vision of the school. We're about transformational experience that helps students become difference makers. That's why most students come here, because they care about doing something that goes above and beyond just themselves, as I said earlier. And that's really our focus. We focus on that, or refocus on that promise to our students, whether that's from the faculty or from the staff, and actually the students who, remind us of what matters to them.
I know you've had some really nice rankings and things. What are some of the things that, if I'm an alumni, what can I go out and brag about to my friend? I graduated from Quinlan and they're doing this.
So rankings and reputation matter. I do believe that. And I think it is a point of pride that we are the #1 ranked undergraduate business program in Chicago. Chicago has a lot of schools that offer a business education, and being #1 in U.S. News and World Report rankings actually matters, I think, because it signals to the world that what we're doing is something that is recognized by others, and that those accolades are based on an education that really speaks to what matters today. And when you think about a business education, I believe, and we believe, really has to be outcomes oriented. With an outcomes orientation, I mean that students have an opportunity to get a job or a better job, that they get a career or a different career than they wanted initially, or a better career. So it's really outcomes based. How do we prepare our students in the best way possible to be successful in their careers, in their chosen fields when they graduate?
Anything you could tell us about in your strategic planning that people would be interested in?
So I think one of the things that really matter that we're working on is strengthening our experiential learning curriculum. What that means is that, a lot of people talk about experiential learning today. It's a buzzword. But for a lot of schools, what that means is they just put a student through an experience, or they call a case study an experience, or a simulation an experience. And it might have elements of that. But what we really try to do and try to build over the next year and years is a true experiential learning curriculum. What that means is we put students through an experience. Let's say they work on a project with a company, So we take the students out of the classroom and into the real world, and they work on a project that's defined with the faculty member and the corporation. But that's just the experience. That's not yet learning. Learning is when the faculty member takes that experience and walks with the students through an entire learning cycle, which means students get to think about or reflect on what worked and what didn't work. And then to think about why did it work and why did it not work. And then to start planning what would they do differently or the same way if they were to go through the experience again. And then the professor puts them through the experience again. And then they go through that learning cycle again. So that cycle of what worked and didn't work, why did it work and not work, how do you plan for doing it better the next time, and then allowing students to do it again, is what makes students better. And just to be clear, business is not a science, we all know that. It's also not an art, it's a craft. And a craft is honed by application. And so what we really do with this is we give students an opportunity to hone their craft by being out there and not just working on it, but then with their faculty member reflecting on what it is. That's how you prepare for an outcomes-based education.
Yeah, it's great that students are out in the Chicago business community.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Actually, and in the world. We're taking students around the world and doing that, not just here in Chicago. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Do you find that the Chicago business community embraces Loyola, or?
Absolutely, there's no doubt. We're such a presence in the city. We have 21,000 alums in the Chicagoland area. Not Loyola, Quinlan. Quinlan has 21,000 alums in Chicagoland. Just, I mean, the sheer number of that, right? The likelihood that you walk down the street and meet somebody who attended Quinlan is really high. So we have this grounding here in Chicago and in Illinois and in the Midwest as we're building an even more national brand than we already are.
What are some of the challenges that you're facing?
I think there are challenges that a lot of schools face. One has to do with a shrinking student demographic, right? Some people might have heard of that term, the demographic cliff, meaning there's a lot less high school students coming out of high school in 25, 26, because at the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, people decided to have less kids. So there's less students who will come into universities. I do think that it's probably not the biggest challenge for us because of the reputation that Loyola has and that Quinlan has. And in tougher times, people tend to flock to business schools. So I think we're going to be okay. But I do believe this is going to be a challenge for a number of schools. One of the challenges we do have, like so many other schools, is to make sure that while we provide a world-class education by a private institution, is to keep tuition affordable, and especially for people who can not out of their own means attend this. So scholarships matter, and scholarships matter in a big way because it allows us to admit students of high caliber who have the quality and the wherewithals to do this and be successful here, but might not have the financial means to attend Loyola and Quinlan.
And where does most of the support for those scholarships come from?
The vast majority comes from alums. It comes from alums who, and actually from alums from all walks of life. Often people think, oh, it's somebody who's become enormously successful and very wealthy, and then they're the ones who do it. That's true, but that's not the only one. There's folks from all kinds of backgrounds who give back to Loyola and who give back to Quinlan with gifts large and small, but they make the biggest difference actually in the life of our students.
Anything else you could think of that you'd want to get across to alumni of Loyola that we missed?
So as I said earlier, we're a school that focuses on application and on practical experiences. In order to do that even better, and to combine research, scholarship, and practical education, we formed the Leadership Hub that unites the various centers that we have in the business school, whether that's the Family Business Center, truly a nationally renowned center, or the Baumhart Center, or the Supply Chain Sustainability Center, the Kauffman Center for Financial Policy Studies, the AI Hub, a variety of centers that we have in there. And what they do is they really are a translational vehicle. What they do is they take the research, the scholarship that's done in the business school and bring that out into the corporate world and work with their members on this. And then they take what's happening in the corporate world and bring that back into the school in order to benefit the research as well as the education of students in the classroom. And that is quite unique. This opportunity to use the hub as a translational vehicle, I think, fits the DNA of what we do at Quinlan, and it's really kind of unique in how we do this.
Dean Behnam, thank you so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.